The Goose Girl. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, a story began that would test the heart of a true princess. A kind old queen loved her daughter more than anything in the world. The princess was gentle, beautiful, and pure of heart. The queen filled chests with gold cups, silver vessels, and sparkling jewels. Only the finest gifts for her beloved daughter. The queen went alone to her chamber. She pricked her finger and let 3 drops of blood fall onto a white cloth. It was her gift of protection. The morning of departure came too soon. They held each other close, both knowing the road ahead would be long. The princess had a special horse named Falada. He was wise, loyal, and he could speak. She trusted him with all her heart. Together they rode into the open road. The forest was bright and the sky was wide. The princess rode with hope in her eyes. The sun grew hot and the princess grew thirsty. She asked her chambermaid for water. But the chambermaid simply looked away. With no one to help her, the princess knelt by the stream alone. She cupped the water in her hands and drank quietly. As she leaned over the water, the white cloth slipped from her gown. It floated away on the current. Her mother's protection was gone. The chambermaid smiled coldly. She ordered the princess to hand over her royal gown. The princess had no choice but to obey. The palace gates opened wide. The false bride rode in wearing stolen royal clothes. The prince ran to greet her, unaware of the truth. The old king looked down from his window. A girl stood alone in the courtyard, quiet and graceful. Something about her caught his eyes. The false bride feared the horse knew too much. She ordered Falada to be put to death. The princess wept but could say nothing. The princess paid a kind man to place Falada's head above the old stone gate. That way she could still see him every single day. Each morning she passed beneath the gate and looked up softly. Alas, Falada, hanging there. And Falada answered gently, Alas, young queen, passing by. If your mother only knew, her heart would break in two. Out in the meadow, the princess sat among the geese. She loosened her golden hair and let the sunlight fall through it. Young Conrad reached out to grab a strand of her hair. She whispered to the wind, and off flew his hat across the meadow. He ran and ran, but never caught it in time. That evening Conrad went straight to the old king. He told him everything, the hat, the wind, and the talking head above the gate. King hides at the gateway. The next morning the king wrapped himself in a dark cloak. He hid quietly in the shadow of the stone arch and watched and listened. He followed them to the meadow and crouched low in the bushes. He saw the wind rise and the hat fly off and the golden hair shine in the sun. That evening the king spoke to her gently. He asked her to share her sorrow. But she shook her head. She had made a promise she could not break. The king led her to an old iron stove and left her alone with it. She knelt down and poured out every word of her pain into the stovepipe. The king stood just outside, his ear close to the wall. He heard every word. And with every word, his heart grew heavier and his resolve grew stronger. The king brought her royal clothes and dressed her as she truly was. When she stood before the mirror, her beauty shone like the sun. The king called his son to the hall. He placed the true princess before him and spoke plainly. My son, this is your real bride. A great feast was prepared that very night. The hall was full of laughter, light, and music. Joy had returned to the palace at last. During the feast, the old king grew quiet. He turned to the false bride and asked her a question. What should happen to one who deceives her master? The chambermaid answered boldly, not knowing she was speaking of herself. The king looked at her and said, You have chosen your own fate. The prince took the hand of his true bride before all the kingdom. They were married with great joy and great celebration. Together they stood on the palace balcony, looking out over their peaceful kingdom. They ruled with kindness and lived with love for all their days. And so the story of the true princess came to a close. Goodness was rewarded, truth was found, and love won in the end.